So today we're going to do something that I don't enjoy doing. It's pretty much next to butcher day for me as far as how I feel about it, but that's disbudding our baby goats. We do it because we need to. There are safety reasons for the goats and for us. We've had some real close calls with goats having horns here on the farm. I can think of one story that happened last summer. We had gotten a buck from somebody else that had horns on him. He was a Nubian with horns, and he was eating hay out of one of our hay bags, and he'd gotten his horns stuck up in the hay bag, and he was hanging there, hardly able to breathe. And I found him and freed him. But man, that wasn't the first time that happened. He did it another time after that and got it stuck in his horns stuck in the fence. Also, when goats get playing around, if you have, whether you have all horned goats or some that are pulled or disbudded and some that are horned, they can end up hurting each other pretty bad with their horns. Safety for us. When my kids are in feeding the goats, I don't want to worry about a goat coming after them with horns. We had an incident where my daughter, when she was 2.5 or 3 years old, she was in the fence with the goats, and I was catching chickens for a customer. A customer was purchasing a few chickens that day, and my daughter had gotten into the goat area, and I just heard her screaming her head off. And I ran over and looked, and I found that our goat, who had horns, another goat that we'd purchased from someone who had not disbudded him, he had chased her into one of our dog kennels and had her cornered in it and lifted her up with his horns. And I ran so fast. I got to her, but it was very scary. Just another reason why it's much better to take their horns off when they're young babies, which we choose to do when they're anywhere between 3 and 10 days old. And I'm going to go over all of the supplies that you should have on hand when you do that. And just give you confidence in doing it yourself. It's scary, but the goats are always okay. They scream their heads off, but as soon as you're done, you put them back with mom and they start nursing. We've had a couple incidents where they started bleeding, so you definitely want to keep blood stop on hand. That could be your best friend when that happens. As well as a good salve to put on there. And also, I like to keep chlorhexidine, and if you get any sort of infection, we've actually never had that happen when disbudding our goats, but if for some reason they do get an infection, you can use chlorhexidine to clean that area up and then put some salve on so it heals over just fine. Okay, so here are the supplies that I use when disbudding goats. There's not too many that you need. The clippers, that's to shave the hair off their head before you disbud them, so you can see the buds a lot better, and so that there's not so much burning hair, because it's the smell is very strong. It's one of the hardest parts for me. Oftentimes I'll end up with a headache if I have too many goats to disbud, which is why I choose to do my disbudding outside so that smoke doesn't get too strong in the shed. I have done it in the shed before and I was sick all day. So we have our disbudder. This is the Rhinehart electric Dehorner. So that's our disbudder, and it has worked very well. I've had it for 5 years and I've never had any issues or complaints with it. I actually have it plugged in right now, heating up. It heats up pretty quick. Within less than 5 minutes it is ready to use. Less than that is probably fine, but I end up usually waiting about 5 minutes, plug it in, get all my stuff around. And this blood stop powder is in case you have a goat that ends up bleeding. Get that on there, and then I also have pads around to put pressure on that to help that blood stop. Once the horns are done, I apply this medicated wound care cream that has an insect barrier in it, and that just helps keep any infection from getting started. Typically, right when I get done disbudding, I'll put a cold pack on their head to just help cool things down. You know how bad it hurts when you get burned, and putting ice on it really does help ease the pain. So that's what that's for. These are the things that are good to have on hand. And now we're gonna go get, we have 2 doeings this year to disbud. So I'm gonna go get one of them and we'll get started. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is give her a little haircut. I've got my cordless clippers here. Oh, come here. I'm not actually gonna sit on her. I'm just, come here. I'm just kind of holding her in place, but holding myself up. So, I've never used a goat box. I know a lot of people do, but I've never needed to. This, just holding them like this has always worked. They don't like the clippers. They feel a little funny, but they don't hurt. Okay, so now I can see her little horn buds much better. I'm gonna bring her up so you can see too. So see, when you buzz all that hair off, you can see there's bud 1, bud 2, and we're just gonna burn these off with our dehorner. Okay. All right. Tuck your feet down. Oh, come here. Bring your back feet. Come here, it's all right. So this goat is 8 days old. She was born last Wednesday afternoon. Before I use my disbudder, I have this piece of wood that I can test to see how hot it is. When I touch the wood, I want it to immediately burn it and put a nice copper ring on it. And as you can see, it's good and hot. Okay. You want to make sure you have a good hold on their head. You don't want to miss and burn something other than the bud, or burn yourself. I've used gloves. I personally think that they get in the way for me, but they do make it a little safer. But for me, it's easier to just not. You want to hold it for about 5 seconds and go from side to side until you have a nice copper ring around each bud. After I get the copper ring around the bud, then I actually take the side of this and I burn the center of the bud. There was one time I made a mistake and I didn't do that, and I had a goat that had like skurs coming out, just horns that are not exactly horns. They look really funny. At this point, I don't think she even feels much there. The nerves are dead. but I really like to make sure I do a good job, because when you end up finding a goat 2 weeks later that has buds growing back, it's really difficult to disbud a larger goat kid. And it's more painful for them because they've grown more. Okay, we're almost done, okay? You're doing so good. You're doing so good. She doesn't have any bleeding, so we're not going to need the blood stop. Just going to hold this cold compress on here to cool her head off. And I'll show you what the copper rings look like. She's moving around, she's fine. They just cry a lot. Well, there's what she looks like. That's what you're looking for, a nice copper ring all the way around those buds. I will say that I have had goats that have genetics for much bigger horns, bucks in particular. You need to do a very thorough job burning these buds off. Does, it's easier to get them the first time. Without burning quite as much. So I'm gonna let her just kind of run around a little bit here, and then I'm gonna put her back in with mom. Okay. Make sure you're good. Set this up here. Put this cream right here. This way the flies won't bug them and you won't get any infection in there. Okay, I'm gonna go put her back in with mom. We hope this gives you the courage to disbud your own goats. Many blessings on your farm endeavors. Thanks for watching, and goodbye for now.